Life can be messy, but you don't have to figure it out alone.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
Join pastors and best-selling authors Levi and Jenny Lusko on Hey, It's the Luskos for honest conversations about faith, marriage, family, grief, ministry, and all the unexpected moments in between. You'll laugh, you'll be encouraged, and you'll be reminded that God is faithful through every season.
It will always come back to Jesus in the end.
That's right. Tune in to Hey, It's the Luskos with Levi and Jenny Lusko. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Go vote. Go vote.
One of these men is a highly respected New York attorney, Lucas A. Ferrara. The other is a self-proclaimed man of the people, known as Mert Roberts. Their aim is to discuss the hottest issues impacting our city, state, and nation. Fasten your seatbelts. Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live, starts now on AM 970, The Answer.
That is a Shake It Off favorite, isn't it, Alex?
Oh, it sure is. We're at Go Vote by Chris Pixer.
Well, let's talk about voting, particularly as it pertains to the 2026 midterms. And here's the $64,000 question. When Americans walk into the voting booth in a few months, are they voting their wallets, their values, or their tribe? Because if you watch Fox, Mert, you hear One America, border security, crime, cultural sanity, accountability, and the idea that Democrats have lost touch with normal people. But if you watch MSNBC, CNN, or the broader legacy press, you hear another America: affordability, healthcare, democracy, constitutional norms, and a fear of executive overreach. And if you talk to actual voters at the grocery store, at the gas pump, at the school drop-off line, or in the waiting room at the doctor's office, you hear something messier. People are exhausted, they're tired, expenses are crushing them, and yet the culture still feels personal. So the question is not who wins Congress, Mert. The deeper question is what kind of campaign can still reach a voter who no longer trusts institutions, no longer trusts media, and may not even trust the party they plan to vote for. So let me ask you this, Mert. If the election were tomorrow, what would decide your vote? Prices, immigration, crime, healthcare, democracy, abortion, education, or just stop on the other side? Where do you sit, my friend?
Well, tomorrow my biggest concern would be inflation. But I'm going to say this. If you are a Republican out there and you're trying to win, you have an uphill battle if there is any shot that a Democrat is competitive in the race that you're trying to win. Because if you were to come out and say, I'm going to be a different Republican or conservative than the current administration, and I'm going to do things differently, because let's just be honest, this administration said things would be different, and they haven't been different. Inflation still continues to go up. So if I was a Republican candidate out there, I would be terrified, because if you come out, we still have 2 years left of the Trump administration. If you come out and you go anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, you're going to get wiped out and probably lose, because he's going to come out and go against you. But if you come out and you agree with everything that Trump has been doing, then that Democrat has an opportunity to say, well, has what's been going on the last couple of years worked? I don't think it has. So that means that maybe we should give Democrats another chance. It would be inflation, but separate from that, if I was any kind of conservative candidate, I would be terrified at what I could really say, because we have a president right now who pays attention to what everybody says. And if you say the wrong thing, that eliminates your chances. But if you say nothing, that could make your campaign a weak campaign. So this election is very interesting, because the Trump administration is coming to an end. Who's going to step up? What is the new movement in the conservative movement? What is going to be the new mindset? What is going to be the new messaging? What is the new rollout? And I haven't seen anything new from the conservatives, they're saying the same thing. They're blaming the Biden administration still. And I don't get that.
I think they're pointing to the implosion of the Democratic Party and how the Democratic Party is becoming more socialist, communist, and frankly, in my opinion, more anti-American. When you have candidates who are on the record, like this guy that just won the Senate race out in Michigan, who's saying that hates America, death to America, and all that other kind of nonsense, this is disgraceful. I think this is a disgrace. I think people will look to the Republican Party for stability. Alex, what is the number one issue for you when it comes to the voting booth?
All right, number one issue for me, I mean, I could say accessibility, but for everybody right now, I really do think the war has to end. That is my number one issue. If they can't end this war, it's doomed for Republican.
You hear that?
You know what? 39% of Americans, when polled, which is the largest number, named the economy. So, Mert, you were onto something. With cost of living and affordability accounting for 15%, immigration was at 7%, healthcare at 5%, foreign policy at 4%, Alex, and Trump himself at 4%. So the economy at 39% is number one. So this is the problem. Voters are doing a different kind of calculation than I think people in Washington are doing, right? Eggs, rent, insurance, medicine, gas, groceries, tuition, credit card debt, and whether the paycheck will get them through the month. And look, voters are in pain. Now, the same Fox coverage cited a poll saying that 72% of middle-class adults and 86% of working-class adults feeling that the system works against them. That's not just inflation, Mert. That's alienation. And here's where it gets dangerous for both parties. If you are a Republican, you cannot simply say, as you noted, the economy is great if voters feel squeezed. And if you're a Democrat, you cannot simply say Trump made it worse if voters do not believe your party understands their life. That's the problem. There's a disconnect, Mert, from the Democratic Party.
What you see taking place in the Democrat Party is this: the old guard are feeling threatened by this young wave of Democrats.
Communists.
If you look at, I believe the guest we had last week stated it very well. He said, if you really look at what these individuals are promoting, that isn't socialism, that isn't communism, that isn't anything that would link to a dictatorship.
I think Lanny Davis
Here
was...
you go, once again, cutting me off.
He was mistaken. I think he was mistaken. I'm clarifying who you're referring to. It was Lanny Davis who said that. But they do want to change the system. They do want to change corporate America. They do want to change the Supreme Court.
Me off.
Because you're not speaking that accurately, Bert. They do
I
want
did
to
speak
change...
accurately. I said he stated that these are
but
not
you agreed
people
with
who
it,
support...
and he was not correct.
This is somebody that you held in high regard, and now you're telling him
but I can
wrong.
disagree with that point. I think he was wrong about that. He was wrong about the socialist point.
That's very interesting. So when you're wrong, who tells you that you're wrong? We don't need to get into that.
I'm never wrong. You are wrong all the time.
I can tell. But let's just say this. Regardless if you think he's wrong or right, no Democrat has ever threatened, hey, I might run for a third term. We have a guy in office who just wore a hat.
Okay, but he says a lot of nonsense.
2028.
But he says a lot of nonsense. Come on, Mert.
Well, I like how you give him a pass, but you won't have that same consideration for other people
What are
who
you
say
talking
things.
about? I give people a pass all the time, but not when they say death to America or I hate America and they're running for political office. No pass for that. That's ridiculous.
None of those
Bert.
candidates have said that, so you're just
come on, that's
making
not
up
true.
stuff at this point.
I am not making up. You are making up by denying
I'll say
it.
this, though. I'll say this, and then I'll let you continue, because I know you're frothing over there to continue. I'll say this. If we are going to dictate where this country is going to go, we're going to have to get away from all this, well, you're the bad guy, and you're the... All that has to be done away with, because we're seeing now, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican end, these issues are more difficult to correct than blaming someone's ideology. Inflation has been going up under Biden and Trump. So whoever's in office, their political affiliation is not the issue. So I think a smart candidate will stop going with this identity politics things and start trying to make the real solutions more attractive, because it's attractive to say somebody is a socialist, but
Amen.
you have to
Amen
make
to that.
attractive what the real solution is, and that's very difficult to do.
Look, when candidates say the economy, voters hear something far more intimate, right? They're thinking, can I afford to stay where I live? Can I afford to get sick? Can I afford groceries? Can my kid afford school? Can I retire before I die? That is daily pressure, Mert. Who is answering that call? I don't think either the Republicans or Democrats are really doing an effective job. And maybe that's why the socialists are gaining popularity, because they're all about, come to mommy and daddy. We'll take care of you. Free buses, free childcare, free everything. And you can live in the basement for free. This is not good, Mert. This is not good for America. And I think both parties are failing to address these direct concerns. So,
well, you know what happened? You know what happened? What happened is we've seen how successful sensationalism is. It's allowed people who might not be qualified to solve such issues to gain prominence and power.
Yep.
There is a world.
I agree with you. I think
there is a world where you could say Biden and Trump didn't have the know-how or the political wherewithal to put in place people who can solve these issues. I can't say the same thing about Obama.
Well, Biden put into place people that opened the borders and allowed millions in, and it's rumored, it's been speculated that Biden wasn't even running the country because of his mental challenges. Okay,
let me say this.
So
let me
let's
finish
not
my
talk
point about Obama, because when Obama got into office, he was dealing with the real crisis of 2008, the real estate bubble that burst, and he put in place a bunch of intelligent people who got us out of that. So I have seen a party, the Democrat Party, make policies or put policies in place that have got us out of turmoil. But these last two administrations, they've been focused on culture wars instead of actually solving the issues of this country.
Well,
and I think that's a big mistake.
Look what happened today, Mert. Didn't you have these two former NBA players who said they want to now sign up for the WNBA, and because they identify as women? Isn't that a creation of the Democratic Party and the liberals, where men can say they identify as women and can play in a women's sports team? Don't you think that's alienating and problematic?
Well,
and
not just that. I think they
out,
actually just said males can compete in the WNBA. That's what they've been saying. So.
Well, they came out today with a statement they're not going to be political pawns. They made themselves political pawns by saying it's okay for genetic males to compete in women's sports. How do you reconcile some dysfunction, this disconnect like that? How can people connect with the Democratic Party when they extol nonsense like this?
Well, this is just a failure of the Republicans to actually have that debate. I don't get why Republicans care so much. Just focus on what really affects people, and then you'll have a better chance with Americans
men in women's
general.
locker rooms.
It's not a big deal. It's not a big issue. It's not a big issue. That's not a significant issue.
News. It was in today's news, wasn't it, Alex?
It was entertainment. That's entertainment. That's not real news. That's not real news to me. That's entertainment.
Really?
Real news would be, okay, we've got somebody who solved the inflation problem. This is what we need. That'd be real news. But we have sensationalism, masking, and imitating news because you see it on CNN. They're trying to get ratings just like everybody else. So they will put some cotton candy out there for the world to digest, and you guys eat it up.
Well, I thought it was ridiculous news today. We'll talk about it in a future show about men, male athletes, former NBA players competing on the WNBA. That's going to be interesting because they threatened to sue if they're not accepted.
That's what I heard too. They're going to sue.
They're threatening to sue. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Be careful what you wish for. And by the way, despite all the dysfunction, Mert, you would think that Democrats would have a bigger edge. But according to a Pew July survey, July 2026, Democrats only have a slight edge. 43% said of the voters that were polled said that they would support the Democratic candidate. 37% the Republican, and 20% were unsure or preferred someone else. So there's a wide margin. There's this gap of that 20% that can go either way, and neither party has the advantage. Isn't that interesting? You would think that it would be more skewed for the Democrats right now, but that's not the case. And that's part of my theory that they're imploding, Mert. That 20% is a lot of volatility. And why? Because the Democrats are not unified, and they're veering towards socialism. And I think, ultimately, that's what's going to hurt them. What do you think?
Well, you would be incorrect in saying they're veering towards socialism because
what are you talking about? More and more candidates. I think Detroit has a whole bunch of DSA candidates coming out. What are you talking about?
Just because the name says socialism does not mean it's socialism.
Oh my goodness!
People
what?
My goodness!
Offering free programs that's used by tax dollars is not socialism. Taking over private businesses.
They want to change private
running
property,
the government,
private
running
property ownership. They want to change governance. It's not about allocating tax dollars, Mert. It's about changing America.
None of these candidates are saying we want to take over everything private.
They're saying,
let the government
for example,
run everything.
AOC said you can't make $1 billion or something ridiculous like that. What are you talking about? They want to control the economic structure, among other things. That's what they're talking about.
And destroy the fabric of the country, if I may add.
That don't even mean anything. You're just saying stuff. They destroy the fabric of the country. What does that mean?
Look at this.
It means they're trying to rewrite a lot of things. And the men and women's bathroom issue is a big deal because you don't want to be a dad and have your daughters go in there and worry if some guy's going to put on a wig. That's a real threat and a fear.
Hey, that's right. A lot of people resent that.
That's what you're afraid of. I thought you were
men.
afraid of the economy. That's what your major fear is.
No, I'm saying that is a fear. I mean, my major fear is if this war's not over, the economy's going to decrease too.
Why the Democrats are imploding. That's why they're imploding.
The Democrats aren't imploding. The old guard is nervous because their old tricks aren't working anymore. And you have new people coming in, displacing them.
Anti-American.
That creates fear.
Anti-American. That certainly creates fear for me. Okay.
Anti-American.
Okay.
Because
Alex,
they want to give people
don't you think they're anti-American, these DSA?
Mert, what solution do you have to the economy? You keep saying there's solutions. What solution would you have? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, let's hear Bert. Let's hear it.
Well, I'm not dumb enough to try to do what you guys would do. I need some experts. I'm going to go get some experts, and we're going to talk about this and make it entertaining. That's my solution. Make the solution entertaining. That way you stop talking about transgender people in women's bathrooms, because that seems to be what you guys want to discuss.
That's today's news. That's today's news about former NBA
my
players.
Solution is,
Come on, stick with the news and why the Democrats are imploding. They created this mess. They created this mess. Yes, finish your thought.
How do I make this boring stuff entertaining? Because there's probably obvious solutions, but it's just too boring and nobody really wants to deal with that. So that's the solution. Do what's right. It's easy to tell somebody to go on a diet, but how many people do it and continue to gain weight? See, the solutions are simple, but they're not attractive, and that's the only problem.
Well, we got to get those experts on. But here's where we land, Bert. Fox is right that voters care about border security, crime, cultural disruption. The broader media is right that voters care about prices, health care, democracy, and executive power. The mistake is pretending that voters only live in one of those worlds. Most Americans live at the intersection, Bert. They want order. They want affordability. They want rights and stability. They want dignity without chaos. They want leadership that does not treat every problem as a prop. The campaign that understands that has a chance, because in the end, voters are not just asking, whose side are you on? They're asking, do you see what my life actually feels like? And that may be the most dangerous question in American politics today. Amen. Here's something that's not so dangerous. You're listening to episode 109 of Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas Live. This is Lucas Ferrara with me in the studio at AM 970. In the heart of the financial district is my co-host, Mert Roberts, affectionately known as the Mertinator. Working the board, Alex Garrett. He's got a 5-star rated podcast, One Leg Up with Alex Garrett. Check it out. When we come back, we'll be joined by Scott Gibbs. He's a California licensed psychotherapist, board member of the Existential Humanistic Institute, independent scholar, and author of an ambitious new book, Toward the Turning, Rethinking the Meaning of 9/11. I, along with Mert, Alex, and all of us at the AM 970 radio team, will return after these quick messages. Expect a great conversation with Scott Gibbs right after these messages.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Eye on Real Estate, New York's longest-running show on real estate, answers everyone's questions, from California to across the Atlantic in London.
It's actually Gateshead, a little bit away from London. I've been a huge fan of yours for many a year.
Dottie Herman and her expert team will help you through the ins and outs of property ownership.
We have great listeners, a great audience, and a great team of professionals.
Call 866-970-9622 with your question Saturday morning at 10 on AM 970, The Answer.
We can tell you about the incredible success we bring to local businesses, but it's better when it comes directly from our satisfied clients. Here's just one example.
After searching for a new vendor to handle my search marketing campaign, I contacted Salem Surround after seeing the great work they did for another restoration company in the different market. Their team of experts recommended a mix of multiple tactics designed to get my business the most quality leads at the lowest cost, making my marketing budget stretch further. In our first year partnering with Salem Surround, we recorded our best year to date, and I've told many people how blessed I was to find them. The representative answered the phone every time I called and quickly addressed any questions or concerns I had.
Let Salem Surround give you an absolutely free audit of your current marketing and show you what your competition is doing. Then, we come up with a personalized plan that's perfect for your needs. Google Salem Surround New York and let our marketing experts help you achieve real success. Remember to Google Salem Surround New York today.
Twitchy.com brings you the latest in social news, highlighting and reacting to important conversations from America's most prominent journalists, politicians, and celebrities. Twitchy's kinetic group of editors deliver fast and amusing content around the clock to tell you who said what in global and political news, sports, entertainment, and media. If it's news, they're on it. If it should be news, they're ahead of it. Stay connected to the newswire of the 21st century with Twitchy.com. Twitchy.com.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
That's an interesting one, Alex. What is the name? What is its name?
This is called Conflict by Senior Musica 81.
Yep, interesting, Alex, because our next guest is about to shine a light on the deeper structures that keep driving conflict and what it might take to turn something better. Now, Scott Gibbs is a California licensed psychotherapist based in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's a board member of the Existential Humanistic Institute and an independent scholar whose work has appeared in the Journal of Humanistic Psychology. After a successful 20-year business career he turned to psychotherapy and the study of relational and large-scale conflict. In his new book, Toward the Turning, Rethinking the Meaning of 9/11, The Clash of Civilizations, and a Postmodern World, Gibbs argues that many of our deepest conflicts, from 9/11 and the War on Terror to today's political polarization, are misunderstood because we focus on surface issues of blame and grievance while missing the identity systems, spiritual and secular, that shape how we see ourselves and the world. Now, when those systems are treated as absolute, rather than constructed and contingent, they harden into fundamentalism and fuel cycles of fear, defensiveness, and violence. The turning is a change in how we see ourselves and the world as living processes we create together. That shift opens the door to more resilience, mutual give and take, and real connection. Welcome to the program, Scott.
Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming on. When you first started writing a book that brought together 9/11, religion, modern political polarization, what inspired you to do that? Because that strikes me as a considerable challenge.
Yeah, I was. It was just after 9/11. I was still in graduate school for studying clinical psychology, and actually had a final for a class, existential psychotherapy, and ended up writing about 9/11 and the reasons behind 9/11 from my perspective. And the professor for the class said, Scott, this is pretty good. You ought to try to get it published. So I did. I rewrote some parts of it and submitted it to a few journals, and the Journal of Humanistic Psychology picked it up, went through about almost a 2-year peer review process, and then it was eventually published. As part of that process, I really never felt comfortable. Sort of what I ended up doing was focusing on one side of the conflict, which was around Islam and Islamism. And, given my background, I do a lot of work with couples. I look at conflict as relational, and so I didn't feel comfortable focusing on one side. I also felt like focusing on one side was sort of stoking the flames in a way. So I stepped back. I said, okay, what's going on here relationally? Started to look at the West and Islam, and really have studied this issue for almost 20 years now, until just recently publishing.
But isn't the problem with Islam, I'm sorry if I'm going into a dangerous direction here, the lack of tolerance? I mean, that's the way it's been perceived in the media and on social media, that Islamists have their view of the world and they impose it on others, and they're less intolerant to the views of others. Isn't that part of the problem?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Islam's got some elements to it that are quite tricky. Right, the idea of submission, which is sort of akin to faith in a way, in sort of Judeo-Christian tradition, but it's a little more, I would say, demanding. That the revelation is actually the literal word of God is an issue, right? So there, it's got a bit of a global marching sort of mindset to it in terms of spreading the religion. So there are elements of it that are tricky, but that's true for all religions. True for a lot of different sort of identity systems. I wouldn't say that it's just Islam.
But how, as a gay person, for example, do you reconcile the hatred from someone who believes that is of the Islamic faith, that they should be killed or they don't have a right to exist? How do you reconcile something like that, Scott?
If I were gay, how would I reconcile something like that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure I could, right? I mean, it's sort of, on my best day, I might say, wow, they're really struggling to, this is a misguided sense of, an ideology. But Lucas, I'll step back. I mean, that's pervasive in our country too, right? And I, personally, I sit and I look at it and I'm kind of like, I'm dumbfounded by it. So it's, again, it's not just Islam that has this. A lot of people struggle with, tolerating that kind of difference. And, it can come from the revelation, right? But it probably hits a nerve at some level around difference, right? Like, we want a homogenous society, and that makes us feel safe. And people who are different, so to speak, they should be shunned. They should be, we need to figure out how to, get them to the corner, so to speak, or hidden at best, or at worst. There are deeper things going on than just the ideology, though that gives form to some of the, deeper needs or fears.
Let me ask this.
Yes, go ahead.
Let me ask this, because as a psychotherapist, let me ask you this question.
Watch out for Mert.
When you're looking at this stuff, are we evolving out of that? Because a lot of people could say, well, 500 years ago, there really wouldn't have been no tolerance. As bad as people think Islam is today, have they even evolved from how they used to be, or are they still the same as they've always been? Or is humanity getting better, for lack of a better term? Because I don't know if it might be better or not. So is humanity evolving?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting question. So, I mean, two things. One around Islam. So, there are like there are with Christianity or Judaism, a broad range from very fundamentalist. Let's bring back basically how it was at the religion's founding, to reform mindset where degrees of tolerance exist, right? So it's not the entire religion. Now, to your question about whether we're getting better or improving, I sometimes struggle. The sort of the conclusion of my book was an attempt, or points to an attempt at a transformation in how we see ourselves, right? Because I look at the we'll call it a debate that's going on, let's say in America, between right and left, right? And I look at the agitation that comes from the left, pushing for more and more and more, trying to get what, a broader tent, so to speak. And I ask myself, is this working? And at some level, I have to, look in the mirror and say, well, it is, I guess. On the other hand, there's a lot of pain and suffering along the way, right? The pendulum swings back and forth. We're in a swing back at the moment. And, are we better off than 500 years ago? I think we have to say we are. Are we there yet? Not in the least. But I'm looking for, or hoping for, something that sort of wants to move that more quickly, or step us outside that back and forth, because that just leads to polarization and sort of constant, strife and struggle, to, let's see if we can't step out of our identities a little bit here, get in touch with our vulnerability around our identity and our sort of the human condition, and really just try to be open-minded, responsive to what's going on for other people, and, fluid in our thinking, right? Our ability to tolerate ambiguity and uncertainty, and try to hear each other, right? So that we can solve problems, and it's not always such a, a giant debate or negotiation that ultimately, can spiral out of control. I mean, it's just a continuum, right? Of, we're in a debate, it gets a little nastier, then it turns to contempt, then we're, objectifying and dehumanizing people, and next thing you know, Charlie Kirk's getting killed.
Right. We know, Scott, we have to take a break in about a minute, under a minute. You talk in your book about that we focus on surface grievances. What are the deeper structures that you believe we're missing? In a minute, if you could start, and then we'll resume after the break. What are these deeper structures that we're not focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about, like, groups having a dance, right, or in some cases a deadly dance, but the other metaphor you might use is it's a conversation that we're trying to have. It's a lot of it's just unconscious, meaning the deeper feelings that we have or needs that we have. So you look at conservatives, it's like worried about, I want security, right? I feel vulnerable around X, Y, and Z. What do? We push for power, we push for control, we push for status. In the face of that, the people who are, under the thumb, so to speak, or chafed by that, they feel less than, they feel hurt by that, right? They feel powerless and sort of not as good, not treated as well. They get angry, they fight back, right? So that at one level is some stuff that's going on that we barely ever talk about.
Okay, we have to take a quick commercial break, but have no fear. Great. Scott Gibbs will be rejoining us after these messages. For more information on Scott and his work, visit his website mscottgibbs.com, mscottgibbs.com. Okay, we'll be right back after these messages.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
In 1796, George Washington made one of the most consequential decisions in American history. He chose not to seek a third term as president. So why does that matter? Because America was not built on permanent rulers. It was built on ordered liberty. Faith teaches that authority is a stewardship, not a possession. Leaders are accountable to God for how they use power. And why does that still matter today? Because republics survive when leaders respect limits and citizens defend them. Washington's lesson still stands. A republic is preserved when power has limits, and public service remains a duty to God and country, not a path to personal rule.
You can always take another vacation, but this one is different. This November, the Gulf of America Cruise brings together beautiful Caribbean destinations, trusted Salem media voices, and people who still believe America is worth celebrating. You'll sail from Fort Lauderdale to the Bahamas, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and Mexico. But the real difference is who you'll be with. Mike Gallagher, Scott Jennings, Larry O'Connor, Jennifer Horn. Live, personal, engaging. This is your chance to step away from the noise, enjoy the water, the food, the sun, the ease of cruising, while sharing the experience with people who think like you and value what you value. If you've been on the fence, this is the reason to finally say yes. 7 days, November 14th through the 21st, the Gulf of America Cruise. Celebrate America's 250th the right way. Text CRUISE to 94878 to book your cabin today. Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
We are joined again by Scott Gibbs. He's a California licensed psychotherapist, board member of the Existential Humanistic Institute, and author of Toward the Turning, a powerful new book that re-examines 9/11, the clash of civilizations, and the identity systems that fuel polarization and violence. He's back with us now to push the conversation forward. Now, for more information on Scott and his work, I messed up his website before. Let me try it again. Visit Scott, Scott, Gibbs, Gibbs.com. mscottgibbs.com, mscottgibbs.com. You'll find his book, Toward the Turning, on Amazon, wherever books are sold. We'll also have the links posted on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Now, Scott, before the break, and I'm sorry I had to interrupt you, I asked you about conflicts, and because we focus on surface grievances, or your theory is that people focus on surface grievances, and I asked you, what are the deeper structures you believe we're missing? And I cut you off. Did you want to finish your point?
I mean, I made most of it, I guess. If I could make it maybe slightly more concrete, I was talking about sort of the right and left in America. And if you pick sort of any policy issue, I mean, gun control or abortion or immigration policy, I mean, these policy issues fit into the construct that I was talking about, which is, for example, the right is, they're worried about a huge influx of immigrants, right? That culture is changing too fast, that there are elements that are dangerous, and it's a worry about society and ultimately maybe the breakdown of society. And they want, something to change that and stop that. And so they're pushing, right? They push a wall, push hardcore immigration policy. And on the left, you got, people who are concerned about, humanity generally, for example, kindness, benevolence, right, taking care of others, fairness and justice. So they look at this and they say, well, that's oppressive. And they're not hearing like the right is actually worried, but because they're focused on the fact that like, well, people are getting hurt, etc. And, we need to be more open and kind. They feel like they need to protect others and push back. And so we're having this, quote unquote discussion or debate, but it just ends up being a giant fight instead of, okay, I get it. You're worried about this. Okay, I get it. You want to be humane about how we do things. We come at this in terms of problem solving. We try to maintain some sense of order and lawfulness around our border while still being humane. And we start solving problems rather than having this, debate that really goes nowhere. It's kind of absurd in a way until, one group's got complete power and they do what they'd like, so to speak.
Let me ask you this, because when I hear psychotherapy, I'm thinking of a serial killer and you going in and you diagnosing them. What is that what does that mean in this context when you're a psychotherapist? What does that actually mean? Because if I heard you, a lot of people probably have the same misconception. But if I heard you talking about one side or the other and you're a psychotherapist, I might be saying, is this guy saying that we're insane? We're monsters? Shouldn't he keep that private? Isn't he contributing to the problem as a psychotherapist, saying this stuff about us? So when you say psychotherapy, what does that psycho mean? Because when I hear psycho, I think of a crazy person.
Well, gosh, yeah. I mean, I don't go there. I mean, the focus of my work is predominantly couples work, right? So marriage, family therapist. I just have a really serious interest in sort of the intersection of psychology and culture, religion, politics, etc. So for me, I'm looking for sort of the psychological structures that drive conflict in between groups, and the deeper sort of needs, the deeper dynamics that drive, in particular conflict. So I started to, articulate some of that there. It's, the right might want security. They might want sort of conformity because that's what they value and that's what's important to them. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. You can't have a society that doesn't have some type of form and order to it, right? And on the left, it's sort of like a progressive, growth-oriented, pushing the envelope towards greater justice, greater equality, greater benevolence, right? And you need that kind of dynamic to a growing, thriving society. So you need both at some level. So for me, that as a psychotherapist, I'm looking to try to understand the deeper dynamics between groups that help us understand what's going on, and trying to avoid the polarization that occurred and bring us back together so we can have some connected conversations that are actually about solving problems rather than
all your study,
screaming at each other. Go ahead.
In all your studies, what have you found that makes that so difficult?
To bring people back together?
What's making that so difficult?
Hey, Scott, isn't it because we don't respect each other, we don't listen to each other? I think there's a fundamental breakdown in communication, much like when couples are having issues. They're really not listening to each other. They're talking over each other, and there's a lack of respect. Can't you boil it down to simple issues for us?
I mean, if I were going to boil it down to a simple issue, that would be fairly high on the list. It's sort of like, from time to time I get the question, okay, what are we supposed to do? And we can attack these kind of stuff from several different directions. But personally, if I were to say, you guys on your show, for example, it's not a debate. It would be something like, oh, okay, Mert, this is what I hear you saying. And Mert says, well, you got this, but you didn't get that. So that is, because when we feel heard, our nervous system calms down, we open up, our thinking becomes a little less rigid, right? And there's possibility then for that person to then hear what's being said to them. It's possible to get a follow-up question in, to dig deeper and to be curious. So, I mean, that's a pretty solid sort of, soundbite. It's, healing polarization generally is a tricky business. I mean, there's a lot to it.
Hey, Scott, we only have a few minutes left. Why should people pick up your book, Toward the Turning? What are the messages or message you hope they take away from your great work?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that people are interested in sort of group conflict today, which is, it's a big ticket item in today's world, right?
Absolutely.
Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening here, right?
Right.
To try to get a sense for what's that?
Politics and the World War and wars. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. If that's something that really interests you and you want to dig into it and try to understand it from a psychological and even a deeper sort of existential perspective, to really get some insight on what at a very basic level is happening here, and something like how might I be contributing to it? Because I mean, we all contribute to this in ways we don't really fully understand, right? It's it's the small little pokes or jabs of a colleague who happens to be a fairly serious Trump supporter, or at the other extreme. That's right. We contribute to this, or we're watching. We only watch a certain news show every day, and we're actually supporting this kind of division, right? Or we only support politicians who make us feel good in our division. They're putting someone else down, and sort of we contribute to the dynamic that's going on. And so that's in part what I would hope people would get out of the book, a deeper understanding of some of these dynamics, maybe a little bit of insight into how they might be participating in it, and how they then might be able to think about what they could do.
Let's stop the dysfunction for the greater good. Unfortunately, Scott, we've run out of time. For more information on Scott and his work, visit mscottgibbs.com. That's mscottgibbs.com. You'll find his book, Toward the Turning, on Amazon and wherever books are sold, and we'll have the links posted on our website, shakeitofflive.com. Thanks, Scott, for coming on the program. We hope you had fun.
Oh, it was great, Mark. Lucas, thanks. Thanks for
Okay, that concludes show number 109. That's over 2 full years of live programming right at your fingertips. Special thanks to the Mertinator, Mert Roberts, my co-host. 109 amazing episodes. That's 218 hours of live entertainment. And if you think that's easy, you try it. And to our hero of the day, Alex Garrett, thank you. Couldn't have done this show without you. Check out his podcast, podcast, One Leg Up with Alex Garrett's 5-star rated. You'll be glad if you did check it out. And to everyone behind the scenes at AM 970, Laura Schaefer, Matthew Samblin, Joe Sabia, Frank Volpe, Ryan Pagano, Kara Frisaro, thank you. Before we go, check out my movies. They're streaming everywhere. My latest hit, Manor of Darkness, Eerie Time Loop Horror, now on Amazon, Google Play, and YouTube. In January, the New York Times said it's one of the top 5 movies to stream, Manor of Darkness. And if you're listening to us live, next up, my favorite show after Dottie Herman's Iron's Real Estate, it's Culinary Confidential with Christina Gates, coming up at 9 p.m. Join us, same time, same place, for more of Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas live. Ciao, ciao.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.
Life can be messy, but you don't have to figure it out alone.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
Join pastors and best-selling authors Levi and Jenny Lusko on Hey, It's the Luskos for honest conversations about faith, marriage, family, grief, ministry, and all the unexpected moments in between. You'll laugh, you'll be encouraged, and you'll be reminded that God is faithful through every season.
It will always come back to Jesus in the end.
That's right. Tune in to Hey, It's the Luskos with Levi and Jenny Lusko. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.